Hello and welcome back to Puppet Time Online. I'm your host, Eric Wright. Puppet Time Online is your chance to sit down with some of the puppetry community's finest and me and hear about what they know about. As usual, I've got Katie over here producing the show. She's going to catch your questions and comments. If you have questions or comments for me or my guest, leave them in the, on YouTube, comment section. We're on YouTube and Facebook Live and Twitch right now. And yeah, I'm really excited to be back. I'm so excited for our guest this week. He's a good friend. I've worked with him on a bunch of things. And he is an incredible director, a builder, puppeteer, and a magician, in fact.
Ooh.
Thanks, Katie.
It's the peanut gallery.
It is my distinct pleasure to welcome onto the show, Mr. Tim Lagasse. Hi.
Hey.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going pretty good.
Yeah, great.
You know, it's actually, yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you on the show. So let's jump right into it.
Okay,
Tell me a little bit about how you got into puppetry.
Oh, this old story.
Yes, this old, for you, old story.
I always played with dolls and puppets. I was always fascinated with puppets. I'm as old as Sesame Street. I was born just a few months before Sesame Street came on the air. I was raised on Muppets, and I've always been a giant Muppet fan. Always, I had Kermit sheets, and I had all the toys, and the Muppet Show was like the only show my entire family would sit down and watch together, and just obsessed with it. I always took all the puppet books out of the library, and actually there's one shelf in the library in the Dewey Decimal System. It's Puppets, Origami, Magic. They're right next to each other. So that was my favorite. It was my favorite shelf.
Favorite three things.
Exactly. And I read all those books at every library. I knew that one shelf in the Dewey Decimals. I knew those Dewey Decimal numbers, and I could read all that. And just, you know, awesome. But it's a hobby. And then I was in high school, and there was in government class, we had to get Newsweek magazine. So I was reading my Newsweek magazine. One month I opened it up, and there was an article about a school in Connecticut where people learn about puppets.
Nice. And
people who graduate there sometimes go to work for the Muppets. And I was like, wait a minute. That's a job? That's cool. A job you can go to college for? It gives it a lot more legitimacy. And my parents weren't very happy about that. But I worked really hard to afford it. And luckily it was just, I lived in Connecticut, so I got in-state Connecticut tuition. So I got like a discount on my puppet education. But I went to the University of Connecticut wanting to be a Muppet and learning about this art form completely. It was one of the best educations about the history and use of all the puppetry. And I fell in love with the whole thing. Yeah. And I came out of there, of course now I get to work for the Muppets. It happened. It took me another 20 years after graduating, but it happened. And the best thing about my education is that I am a puppeteer and I'm a puppet builder. And a lot of people either do one or the other. And I love doing both. And I love that I get to do both. And it's because of that education that I get to do that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I was at UConn for 1 year. I was my study abroad program.
Oh, you were one of those. Wait, did you, Sarah Lawrence?
Yeah. Lars,
that's how we got Lars too.
Predecessor. Yeah.
She was right.
Yeah. But I think that's how that was our connection, was that we met through the UConn connection. And I think maybe then at the O'Neill also, because you do a lot of work at the O'Neill.
I do
as well.
I do. Oh, well, yeah, that's that whole UConn mafia. It's like this, you know, it's the whole puppet UConn.
I mean,
mafia.
when you have a degree program for puppetry, you could probably expect that all of
and
those
you
people
only
are gonna go
graduate
somewhere.
like 3 or 4 people a year.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Oh, so you were there with Bart.
Yeah, I was there with Bart.
I
I was
was
in there the
yeah.
last year that it was in the basement of the old building.
Oh,
before
you
they
had
moved
the
on to the new building.
basement. Oh.
Yeah, so I got the old stuff, you know.
The old stuff. Yeah, I was 2 years. I was Frank Ballard's last 2 years and Bart's first 2 years. So
cool.
I got a really interesting education there too.
That's cool.
Which was amazing.
Well, so my next question that I like to start with is, now that we know a little bit about what got you into puppetry, what keeps you in puppetry?
I don't know how to do anything else. I don't know how to make a living. I've been doing this.
Lots of great things, I'm sure.
I've been doing this like for 30 years now. It's insane. I don't know how I kept thinking it was going to dry up, and it looked like a couple of times throughout history that it was all puppets are all going to go away. And
right.
Work keeps showing up. They keep me working. I've been very lucky to work on a whole lot of things, but I love it. I really love the challenge. I love the art form. I love the challenges it brings. Going to work doesn't feel like work. When I have a day of work, no matter how hard it is, I wake up instantly and happy, and I'm great to, there's nothing holding me back from, I can't wait to get to work and get started and make myself miserable figuring this stuff out.
Sign of a true artist,
right?
Just relishing in the misery of
and you're in it and you're like, oh god, and you get home like, god, that was fun.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like you're having fun when you're doing it, but then I've also been lucky to be on a lot of
you've worked on some really cool projects over the last 30
weird,
years. You've done because you worked on Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance, right?
I got to build Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance.
That's
awesome.
The
weird thing also about that was it was a job that was a whole year. It was a 9 to 5, 40 hours a week from January to December. Go to work every day and build Dark Crystal, which was that made it even weirder. I've never had that.
For those who are watching that have 9 to 5 jobs, that's just a perfect example of what a dream that is.
Be careful. Enjoy what you have. Enjoy the security that you have. Your 9 to 5 job.
Let's see. We've worked together on a couple of things as well. You came in as a puppet director for a show that I worked on called Seymour's Playhouse many years ago.
A long time ago.
It was a long time ago, but that was a great experience. It was all shot on green screen, which was its own particular challenge.
In many ways, and there's a variety of talent on that show. Experience. There's a variety of experience on that show.
Yeah.
And there was a big and everybody was always at every shot. There was never any. It was very rarely just 1 or 2 puppets. It was always so many puppets.
Big ensemble.
They love keeping everybody going like that. But it was a good fun. It was a fun group. There were some fun people in there.
Yeah. And I was also lucky enough to come in for a couple of days as an assistant on Helpsters, which you did a lot of work on, including the character of Scatter, and you were also puppet captain on that show.
I am the puppet captain.
Still, because it continues.
I think I got my puppet captain hat back there. Actually, that Jen Barnhart had made for me.
Your Untitled Puppet Show.
Oh, that's our secret hat.
That was the original working title, the top secret title for the show.
For you kids at home, when you work on projects for companies like Disney and Apple, they love to be very secret. They don't want people to know what's going on. They like to, show the world when they're ready to show the world. So they give it things code words. Like I think wasn't Star Wars didn't have a famous like Blue
Harvest.
Blue Harvest, right? So this was their Blue Harvest. It's very original.
Nobody could ever figure it out.
And it was so weird and meta, and it just made us laugh. And Stephanie DeBruzzo, who plays Cody, turned to me and she said, "I want that to be the swag. I don't want Helpster swag. I want this. I want everything." So I went out and I made this.
Yes.
And awesome. I showed up to set, and all the Apple people were like, "Where did you get that?" The people aren't supposed to know. Like it's not the name of it's the joke. It's a joke name, right? It doesn't matter. So and then everyone started going down to the hat store and making up their own. Everybody there was a variety of hats. Everyone made it their own way. But,
That's amazing. I'm really curious to talk to you about the role of puppet captain.
Sure.
Especially because it just has like such a great seaworthy name.
It's such a weird name, right?
But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what that role is on a set, or what you do as puppet captain day to day.
Different places have different definitions for what a puppet captain is. Some people think of it's like a dance captain almost, which is like a similar term, a job that existed before puppet captain. I see the puppet captain's role as someone who communicates with production about the needs of puppetry. Puppetry is a very limiting art form. It can't do everything, or actually, puppets can do anything with the right amount of time and money.
Right.
And most puppet shows, especially shows, kind of children's shows, are kind of shot in a hurry.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to spend a lot of money. They're very low budget. Children's television is very low budget. They don't spend a lot of money on it. So you have to shoot it. That's the other innovation that Sesame Street brought us, is they would shoot an episode a day. They shot in kind of what they called back in the day soap opera style. Soap operas were also very cheap, and you shot soap operas in a hurry.
Right.
So 3 cameras and a show in a day, which is unheard of. I came out to Hollywood and people were like, and I started shooting a show, and we would shoot an episode a week, and I was like, this feels slow to me. I was so used to shooting an episode in 2 days. I'm like, wow, we have a whole week to develop and shoot it. It felt luxurious. And so, but puppets have certain limitations, and only puppeteers know kind of when they can look at, with a certain amount of experience, you kind of know what problems you might be up against. So puppet captain is like an above the line person who usually goes to all the meetings and is there to look out for pitfalls that the puppets may fall into, that puppetry, and being able to be able to kind of plan ahead for those things that might be complicated, and think about what might take time, or might take a little more building something special, or a rig, or enough, or a certain number of people. So it's like you're like a producer. And your also job is to work with the director, to help the director get what they want, because a lot of directors don't have puppet experience. So they come to the puppet captain and go, this is what I want to see. And then you tell them, well, we could do it this way, and it will take us 3 days, and we can do it this way, and it'll take us an hour, and there's a couple things in between. So you're kind of like the one voice, and you're also kind of the voice between the puppeteers and the puppet shop and production. So you're kind of you're there to kind of represent your departments. Okay. And sometimes you're representing just the puppeteers, and sometimes you're representing just the shop, and sometimes you're representing both.
Katie, do you want to jump in with a question there?
Yeah, we had a question from
Christian.
Oh,
how long is production for a Helpsters episode? Oh, you said sometimes the production is shoot an episode a day for Sesame, and a week on some of the more shows that you shot in LA. What was Helpsters like?
Helpsters is 2 days, because half of an episode is in the studio and half the episode is on location. Which is has its own problems. You did a location shoot, didn't you? Was that the wedding? Were you in the wedding?
One of the, like, a private library near Central.
Right. That was crazy. I mean, I lived in New York almost my whole life and never knew that weird library was there.
Yeah, it was really cool.
It was a beautiful location. So that locations take longer to shoot.
Yeah.
Probably like 3 days an episode. We probably did 2 days in the studio and 1 day on location per episode.
Yeah. So what you're saying with Puppet Captain about sort of being a liaison and sort of keeping an eye out for the puppeteers and looking ahead at scripts and things like that, that's sometimes those sound like jobs that have also gone to puppetry directors in the past. Is there a big difference between Puppet Captain and puppetry director?
I mean, puppet director is like a director that's directing a puppet show, or like someone that's a title is puppetry director.
Like someone that's title is puppetry director. I guess
I've never heard of anyone called puppetry director.
Oh, really?
New to me.
I guess the difference is just like whether you're in because a puppet captain, you are also a performer, right? You would
usually
be a puppet captain.
Usually you're also one of the puppeteers. Yeah, usually you have a character or you have one puppeteers. I was puppet captain on Christine McConnell. I didn't have a character. I played all the weird extra things because everybody else was so immersed in their puppet. I was just kind of there figuring out how to get it.
Is it a very different, like, is it a really different position if you are to have that outside eye if you are also, because Scatter's not a secondary character. I mean, you're in it on it like a lot of the scenes.
Yeah.
Does that change your perspective and like your, then on Christine's show where you're kind of outside more often?
No, because we're all looking at the same monitor.
Mm.
I mean, it's just another part of my brain. I'm just kind of paying attention more than most, but I'm still seeing all the shots that the director's seeing.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of on the fly. But a lot of your work is actually pre-work.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm on the set, but usually by the time you're on the set, most of your job is done.
Uh-huh.
Because most of your work as a puppet captain happens in meetings, in production meetings.
Got it. That makes sense.
Or between takes or between shots. But when you're moving to the next shot, then I'm kind of talking to the wranglers going, oh, by the way, this next shot coming up, I need this kind of hands on this puppet, and we need this kind of a rig ready. Where's that apple? That special apple. Where's that prop? And you're in between. So you don't get a lot of breaks.
Uh-huh.
I don't ever get to. I don't ever get to go. I never get to go out to lunch. I'm always in a lunch meeting, but that means they're buying me lunch, but which is great.
Silver linings. Right?
Silver lining, free lunch. I'm earning it.
Yes, of course.
So most of the work's done in between, but on the set, sometimes all of a sudden things change, and you have to kind of all of a sudden get up and go, oh no, someone else grab that monkey and go behind that palm tree with the monkey. I need someone over there.
And also, we have some puppet needs.
And yes, exactly. Yes.
Katie, do you have a question you want to throw in there?
We have another question.
Oh, hi, Carol.
Carol,
share a surprising experience you've had as puppeteers, and also an especially funny one as well. Well, so I was also gonna ask in that same vein, if there's something that you see as puppet captain that like in a script. We talked to Andrea Detweiler last week, who's an incredible wrangler and who you worked with as a
brilliant
wrangler on Helpsters.
Yeah, and the nicest also.
And the nicest.
And
I was asking her whether there are things that you see in a script that immediately send up red flags in your puppet captain brain. I think the one that she pointed out was puppets eat a thing.
Right.
Anything that's like, and then the puppet eats something. Are there things in a script that that like send up those flags? You're like, this one's going to take a little more than just writing it down and then the puppet does it.
Food, always food. Always like he's got to eat, or like the puppet picks up this thing and breaks it into a banana and breaks it into 4 pieces. It's always like it's almost 99% of the time food related. Also depending, and that happens a lot. And Andrea and I deal a lot with kind of Muppet style puppets, which are fleece.
Right.
And fleece is, as you know, is really hard to clean.
Very difficult.
And it's been hand stitched onto, so you can't pull the skin off and wash it and put it back on again. So that's always a problem. So I've also been on other shows, like when we did Crash and Bernstein.
Yeah.
I wasn't the puppet captain, but I'm the only puppeteer on the show. So they always give them my 2 cents, and they always won. But the thing about that show was we knew that we were always going to set the puppet on fire. The puppet was going to be dunked in oatmeal, and he carried a sword, and there was always, so they just built a whole bunch of them. And that team, actually, the puppet captain on that show was Greg Ballora, who's also a brilliant puppeteer and puppet builder out here in LA, and a very smart guy. And he would always just kind of have his team build. He had to be a piñata once. He had to have his severed head talking while being tossed back and forth. Things that you would basically drive you insane if you had a show that was only shooting in 2 days.
Right, of course.
But Crash, we had a week to plan all this stuff all the time. But they're like, oh, fleece, yeah, but we have 10 more crashes in the back. It's fine. Just set them on fire.
That's awesome.
So it's always specific to the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Katie, you want to throw one in?
We've got another good question.
Oh, hi, Martello. What's it like getting to perform on a stage show with the Muppets? Oh, that's right, because you did the Muppets at the Hollywood Bowl.
The great thing about that is that we actually did the Muppet Show.
That's awesome.
This is I'm gonna get letters. The Muppets have been doing all these new projects, right? Sure. And they keep doing like movies and like that. And everyone just wants them to do the Muppet Show. That's what I want. Just make more actual, the original Muppet shows. Everyone's got to dress it up and turn it into a thing or make it The Office or Just make the Muppet Show. We all just want more Muppet shows. And this was alive. And they just said they built the set to look like the Muppet Show. And we did all the original sketches from the Muppet Show. And I'm not one of them. I'm not Kermit or Piggy or anybody, and I don't want to be, honestly. That's a different job that I realized. I auditioned for Kermit, and I realized halfway through my audition I didn't want it, and I stopped.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I put the frog on, and I started doing it, and then you're there in this moment, you're really doing it, and you realize the gravity of this job. And the thing about that job is you're always second guessing yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're always wondering, what would Jim do? What would there's so much great expectations, and it kind of takes the joy out of it for me.
Yeah, interesting. It's a
And I
lot
realized,
of
like,
a different kind of pressure on that
But on
performance.
that show, I was like a shark and a clown and one of the Muppet phone things, and like I was all the weird, which is so great. Who gets to do that? And then at the end, we all came out and everyone put on a Muppet, and you sing Rainbow Connection, and it was like that show was kind of like 8-year-old Tim's dream come true.
That's so great.
And it was great to do that for an audience. It was great to do that and do the live show and have this live reaction. I did it in LA and I did it in London, and both times it was just. And also the cool thing that there's a lot more celebrities kind of hanging around. I got to meet a couple of Doctor Who's.
Oh, nice.
And Bobby Moynihan. By the way,
yeah,
Bobby Moynihan, amazing comedic actor, amazing actor, great human being, went to the University of Connecticut.
Yeah.
I took puppet classes.
Yeah, huge fan of puppets.
Jamie
Jamie Bressler, who's I'm one of the best puppet builders I know, has built a couple of puppets of his characters for him.
Oh, sure. I bet. Oh yeah, he's a collector.
He's got tons of cool stuff.
He's got tons of cool stuff. But I was like, I didn't realize he was family. I was like, you're UConn Mafia.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's really
so
cool.
that whole show was a win-win. And also there was a great group of puppeteers, like every Muppeteer. Karen Prell, who was Red Fraggle, came back, and she was background characters to me. She and I had no main characters. Like Karen Prell sitting there, and she's just doing like random Muppets too. And like we're having a great time.
That's really
It was a really great group of people.
That's cool. Did you want to jump in there?
We have a follow-up Muppet question.
Oh, from Noah. Hi, Noah. Do you play piano in real life or just as Rolf?
That's how I got that job.
Really?
I walked in. They walked me. I got called on day when they started. I knew they were shooting that new The Muppets on Disney, and that shot at the Disney Studios, which is just kind of down the street for me. It's a 15-minute drive. I don't even have to get on a highway to be at Disney Studios. And I was like, oh, I got to get on this. And they brought me in for right hand one day. And Bill Barretta, who plays Rolf and Dr. Teeth, goes, "You play piano?" And I went, "Man, I had 8 years of lessons as a kid." He went, "Here with me."
That's
and
awesome.
The thing about Bill is that, he'll give you one shot. Don't blow it. I love that about him. Like, keep up.
That's right.
And they actually, it's what's great about the guys who play the band guys now is they take playing the music really seriously.
Yeah.
The musical director gives you charts.
Yeah.
Here's the sheet music and here's your track separated out so you can make it really look like you're really playing this music. And they really care about that, which I was like, and to just focus on that, like I'm just playing fake piano.
Yeah.
Over my head.
Yeah. See, I want to kind of get into that with you too, because that's a question that I think that I sort of go back and forth on, which is like, should the Electric Mayhem be playing real music? Like, do you think that adds to the performance? Where I could probably easily make the argument that like the performance is them like acting like they're playing music, or like, you have to act like you're playing music. You have to act the moment, the scene, and the like whether you're getting the fingering right, maybe isn't necessarily the thing to worry about.
If you're not a musician, you don't care. If you're a musician, it drives you insane.
Yeah.
Go find someone who loves the Muppets and plays guitar really well and ask them that question. And they're going to go, "Oh, it just drives me." Watching any actor, you can tell when there's an actor on screen and they're like, and they're not fretting at all. And I know musicians are just to go, "Oh, he's not fretting." Like, you're missing the point. It doesn't matter. No, look, he's not fretting.
It sounds like they're the ones fretting.
Yes, right. Oh, look what you did.
I guess the one I think of the most is Animal playing the drums, which is like old Muppet Show Animal was like
slamming them
general direction,
and his drumsticks were springs, so he swung the drumsticks were just like, which had this great action to him. But now they have
now he really plays the drums.
Michelin Sisti, who goes and he learns, and you'll see him when between takes, and he sits in his dressing room with the headphones on, just practicing. watching the chart, listening to it, and really hitting it. Because at a certain point, if there's certain things in the music you want to hit, like I'm kind of 50-50 about it. Like all of a sudden, if there's a piano solo and you don't go right on, bing, right on cue, especially if you're playing for Rolf, because they play really noodly, which is really hard. If it's just a song and there's a rhythm, it's easy to do.
Right.
If it's just like someone kind of like jazzing and noodling, you have to listen to that for like 3 days to make sure you're going to land that bing. You know, it's like
to kind of be able to do it as casually.
And I'm gonna make a little point about a joke. Ding. You know, I remember that I had to do. There's a Jack White did a version of "Sunshine of Your Love" for the Muppets series, and he played it. His band recorded it and sent it in. That never happened. Usually it's our game. He goes, "I'll do the show, but I want to record this version of the song." So he sent it. We got it the day before, and the first 8 bars is an organ solo, and I was like. Ugh. I knew they were going to start. Their camera was going to be right on my hand, and they were going to pull out to Jack White. Yeah, and I bet this is going to happen. And that was it. Because the first 3 notes, it's like click, 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 do, 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 do. When you're there, you got to nail it. You can't fake it. Not like do, 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 do. No, but if you're in the background, doesn't matter. But if they're going to be on you,
I'll buy that. I buy that.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think? Oh, Katie, you want to jump in?
Well, if you had a better question, go ahead.
Who's to say? Go ahead.
Better question.
Well, this is another good one.
Yeah, Christian loves directing puppets, especially being a puppeteer. What's the craziest thing you've done as a puppeteer to make sure you got the shot? Like uncomfortable positions or something else. Puppeteers are notorious for needing to get into uncomfortable positions or putting the puppet first over our own comfort, I would say, right?
What's the rule, Eric? What's the Jim Henson's rule?
Always Bob right first. I don't
Jim
know. What's the rule, Tim?
Jim Henson once famously said, and we all quote this all around, like, if you're comfortable, you're doing it wrong.
See, I hate that, Tim. That's lame. That's such a lame thing to say.
But then Pam Marciero had it.
Jim would never say that.
Pam Marciero said, but if you're uncomfortable, it doesn't necessarily mean you're doing it right.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Just because you're uncomfortable doesn't mean you're doing it right.
That's right. You have to take care of your instrument first.
You have to. This morning I was at the doctor getting my sciatica fixed. I've got 2 slip discs. 51 finally. Helpsters.
It's not a fun thing to have when you're a puppeteer.
No, you kind of need to be able to move and not be in pain all day.
Yeah.
But you're always uncomfortable. And of course, that's our famous thing to talk about. Everyone, it's like a bragging rights, isn't it, Eric? Like I did this shot and I had to be hung upside down and set on fire to do the shot. It's
It is a little bit. War stories are war stories. It's like, I was in this so bad that I didn't realize. I get uncomfortable when it's like that's the goal. Like, it shouldn't be the goal.
No,
it's never as possible.
No.
It should be like, what? I don't know. War stories are war stories.
And sometimes, I was doing this weird promo piece for a MTV show, and MTV was kind of always run by like young hipsters, so they never did a lot of their homework on these shoots. And I had built this puppet, and they wanted the puppet to be in a push cart at the grocery store, and a little man pushing it and talking to this little dragon puppet through the frozen section. And the way we did the rig was I built this. They cut open the bottom. They cut the bottom out of the carriage so I can kind of sit a little lower, and I had to work backwards.
Right.
So I'm sitting with my back against the part here, and the little puppet sitting in the thing when we with his little hands on the railing with his legs sticking out the hole. And they're like, oh, we can still see you. So they were going to put just groceries on me. Because we had this groceries. We were in this grocery store and they could use it. So they were, and I said, yeah, grab a bunch of cereal boxes, stuff like that. Just put the groceries and you can hide me under the groceries. The prop guys just started grabbing frozen food. Like bags of peas and carrots and things and waffles. And I'm like, guys, really? The frozen food? Okay. So I'm buried under all this frozen food and I'm freezing. Yeah. And we're going to, and the actor's an old guy and he keeps blowing takes and it's all melting on me. Oh, you feel it just condensating and just dripping down my. I'm under the peas. And then when we got the shot, they pulled me out and they pulled all the bags off, and the print from the peas bag was backwards on my face.
Uh-huh. You can say that shot really left an impression on you.
Yes. Oh. Look what you did.
I don't know. So I guess my thing is that like like you mentioned before, there's not a lot of directors and producers that have experience with puppetry.
Right.
And so like that kind of puts it on us to watch out for ourselves as
we have to.
puppeteers.
We're
And
the
like
only ones to know.
And especially the puppet captain, is like that. It's your role to like really be the voice of the puppeteer and like what is a reasonable expectation and what's not. And I think like a dancer, like you should be putting effort into your work, and you should be working hard at what you do. And
yes,
but I feel like there's a difference between knowing a director forgetting that there's a person attached to a puppet and then just doing whatever. And if you complain about it, you're not supposed to complain about it. And a puppeteer like really putting in a lot of effort.
Right. But also if they forget there's a person attached to it, that means you're doing your job.
Well, right. It is kind of a double-edged sword.
So you can't get mad at it. Yeah. That just means that they're appreciating what you're doing. And they're like when a director comes up and gives notes to the puppet and you're like, I'm over here. I'm over here.
That's right.
Don't talk to me.
That's the ideal.
That's the ideal. So you can't get mad at it, but you have to expect that it's going to happen. And also, but things like that, like now I know, like we have to have a puppet sitting in the baby seat on the carriage. And I go, well,
yeah,
we need to talk about that. That's not as easy as you think.
Yeah.
And
how do you approach that with directors and producers that are working with puppets for the first time? Or like, what are some of the first things that you go through with a director or producer that is brand new to puppets?
Well, I have a little speech. I go, okay. I go, okay. So, what I tell them, I want them to just always think about what they want to see. Don't think about the limitations of puppet. That's my job. Mm-hmm. You ask for whatever you want, and I'll tell you how hard it is. Because I don't want to kill your creativity. Yeah. But I also find that I'm more creative with the limitations. I prefer limitations. I love limitations. Yeah, inside that, don't give me a blank page and say I can do whatever I want. I'm like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. Give me some rules, and the more rules and limitations. I mean, my thesis in college was bare hand puppetry because it was the most limiting and also the cheapest. Sure. And I was obsessed with it, the style, but I was like, oh, this is really hard to come up with a half an hour show that you could just be with no puppets. So I love that limitation. But I also don't want to, when people have those limitations in their head, they think they make it easy. They keep doing the same thing because that's the easy thing to do. Like, no. Mm-hmm. But then but also realize puppets can't pick up props or put them down. They don't walk easily unless we've rigged up. We think about their path of where they're walking. Yeah. They actually can't see out of those eyes. We need to have monitors. We need to be able to see what you're seeing always. And don't expect to see them full body a lot. Because we can't do that. Yeah. But they always think they can kind of shoot them with the famous director's shot as a cowboy. Can we shoot him cowboy? Which is kind of just from like mid thigh to the top of your head. Right. And it's like, no, we're gonna be tighter. You gotta be tighter than that. You have to hide. We're using that frame to hide the puppeteers. Yeah,
that's interesting.
And with one other thing I tell, every shot is an effect shot with a puppet. Oh,
that's good to know.
If it's a puppet in it,
because they have a frame of reference for that.
Yeah, every puppet. Imagine that every shot with a puppet is an effect shot. And then so they come to it with a little more preparedness to it.
Are there? Yeah, Kitty.
I just thought this was a good opportunity to talk about
about Ubi
hand puppets.
Yeah, for sure. Look at you. This is for Ubi, right?
That was Ubi. That was actually the first week that we shot. That's the way Ubi kind of came about. Was it was first a bunch of interstitials for Noggin, and they did so well that we got to do a TV show. So this was us shooting just the little shorts out, and I know that because we did all locations, and then we realized that we were never going to do locations ever again after doing those. It just made it hard.
Did this have anything to do with your thesis at UConn on their hand puppetry?
I got the job because of my thesis.
Mm-hmm.
I did my thesis was called Show of Hands, and it was a half-hour show of just hand mime.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was at Nickelodeon a lot because I was cheap. I was doing all these weird interstitial things, and I did the thing called Stick Stickly, which was a little popsicle stick.
I was going to ask about Stick Stickly.
Oh,
that's the thing that I fanboy out about.
Oh, really?
Oh my God. Love Stick Stickly.
I've got one. I have one stick here. I remember I met another young person. I was on doing Crash. This young lady in front. And I brought stick to set, and she burst into tears. I was like, it's Fimo and a pops. This is I should be proud. But those people were also that was done by the promos department, so they knew me. Promo department knew me, and they would have to do anything weird. Why was I telling this story? Because they saw my Show of Hands show, because I did a reboot of it at the Here Theater. I remounted it many years later in 2001, and they saw it and they went, "Can we do some of these for Nickelodeon?" So we made little short films of a couple of the segments from the show that aired in between cartoons on Nickelodeon. And Josh Selig came to Nickelodeon. We said we have this idea, because he was inspired by the training of Muppet puppeteers. When you go to learn to be a Muppet puppeteer at TV, your first week they give you the ping pong balls.
Mm-hmm.
They give you ping pong balls with dots on them and a rubber band, and so you can learn focus and lip sync. And if you can handle the ping pong balls, they give you a puppet. He was like, I like that. I think that should be a show. And he pitched it to them. And he goes, and I want to use this guy, Marty Robinson. He's an amazing puppeteer. And they're like, well, we had this puppeteer, Tim Lagasse, who did all this great hand stuff for us. We should look at him. And they didn't realize that Marty and I had a company together, so they could have us both easily. That was an easy fix.
Well, that's convenient.
And because I explored a lot of hand puppetry, we did the first camera test. Martin's like, well, you should be Ubi. I'm like, all right, well, just for the tests. And I kind of pushed the limits with because they just wanted talking, and I started doing all the stuff with the gesturing while talking and picking things up. And I was there to kind of counter Josh Selig, because he had specific ideas, and I would push him. That was another puppet captain idea. It's like, well, hey,
what if
you could do that, but what if we did this?
Yeah, that's cool.
So you can kind of, and I would always, he and I would have just great fights over what you couldn't do with Ubi. Because he and I were making up the rules, because this is this weird new universe.
Sure.
So he and I, but that's how I got Ubi.
That's cool. So that's actually a great segue, because I feel like you have a huge range of experience with puppets on screens, from small screen web series to short films that you've made to television series to like the whole 9 yards. And now everybody's on screens for the moment. What do you feel like? Are there exciting things that you are seeing come out of this, or are there things that you think are good to keep in mind when you are putting puppets on screen?
I teach a class at the O'Neill called Video Anarchy. I don't teach it all the time, whenever they have a slot. And this class is about filming puppetry, puppetry, which my whole career has been. I've done live, and I love doing live, but my career has been about puppetry in recorded media. That's my expertise. Yeah. And this class was about getting everything that was not Muppets, every other kind of puppet on screen. But if you walked in there with a fleece and ping pong ball idea, to go, nope, give me something else. Also, because it had to be something that you could build and shoot in a week at the O'Neill, the way the O'Neill works. The O'Neill Puppetry Conference works, if the kids at home know about that. And when I was doing that class, I kind of came up with the rules
of puppets on film.
Of film puppetry.
Puppets on screen. Okay.
And the first mistake people make is they build puppets to last forever. And the puppet is not your final product. The film is.
Right.
You're making, so the puppets only need to last long enough for you to make your film.
Great. Which
makes you get to your film easier. Instead of and some people kind of just don't, they're so afraid to start filming that they obsess and keep building the puppets. They go, tell a story. Tell a story. It's not about being a puppeteer. It's about telling a story using puppets. Puppets is the tool.
Yeah.
Filmmaking is the tool. You're telling a story with sequential scenes using puppets. So if it doesn't work for your story,
get rid of it.
The story should drive everything.
Okay.
Do your homework. because you can write something, plan it out, write a storyboard, make a storyboard, because when there are things that you're going to learn in the storyboard and in the planning that you need to know, because you get to the shoot and you get there and you're going to go, oh no, I needed a third strawberry that can explode.
Oh my God. Okay, so
you didn't tell him
that was not planned at all, but I've been, to anyone within earshot over the last 2 days, I've been complaining about how
which, to be clear, is me. Oh, and me. Because we're trapped inside.
Yep.
So I'm doing a short film for the Little Orchestra Society right now.
Fantastic.
It's
wonderful.
great.
They're very lucky to have you.
And you know, it's in a short time frame, as a lot of things are.
As they always are.
As they always are. I'm relatively new to putting puppets on film. I'm mostly a live puppeteer. And because it was short, I was like, I'm going to do my script work and like go through the script and make sure that I know what's going to be a wide shot, what's going to be a single, what's going to be an insert, blah, 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 and like write it all up in the script, and then I can get right into shooting. And I filmed about 6 hours on Friday, and like got some great stuff in, got 47 good takes, lots of coverage. And then set up to shoot on Monday and continued in the script where the mother's like, hey, why'd you eat those strawberries? Literally strawberries. And I realized that because I didn't have a storyboard, I had like half of my footage from Friday was unusable because there was a full basket of strawberries in the background of every shot. And that I hadn't shot anybody eating strawberries. And so, I was mostly mad at myself for trying to cheat death and being taught the hard way that you can't avoid it.
Your homework is never a waste of time.
It's never a waste of time.
Homework is cheaper because all it is pencil and paper.
Yeah.
Or time on front of your computer. You don't have a whole room full of people getting paid or giving you their valuable time and rental equipment, lights, your time and your space. You don't want to sit and figure out things when you're on the set ever. Yeah. You need to do your homework, because you can kind of sit and go through it and figure out where your mistakes are and what you really need to get to tell your story.
Yeah. And that was the big thing for me, was like, I learned so much in the storyboarding process. I was like, oh, I can shoot so much less. Right. And I sort of felt like going into that, because I'm a live puppeteer, or like I have a lot of experience as a live puppeteer, I was like, oh, well, I'll turn the camera on and then play it,
and then magic will happen.
It out, and I'll be fine, and I'll just catch it. But it's a totally different ball game that I am learning, in the somewhat hard way.
You can ad lib, but you can't ad lib until you have a plan.
Yeah.
I made a puppet show in college. I made a TV show in college. And the thing is, when I was in college, back in my day, when I was in college, we didn't have TV studios. We didn't have cameras in our pockets. That's right. I had to apply to use the TV studio at the University of Connecticut. And it was a giant long list. And I had to do all these things to get in there. Yeah. Couldn't use it. I mean, we edited tape to tape. We had this thing when we recorded video on tape. And they opened up a cable access station, and it was my last year at UConn, my last semester at UConn. And we went in, and we had just done the first O'Neill, and we all had these Muppet puppets from the O'Neill, like, hey, let's shoot a thing. And we went in and we ad-libbed an episode, and I went to cut it. And then I was like, and of course you're in college, you're drunk, and you're cutting it together. And you're like, this is hysterical. And we put it on the air that night. And our professor was like, I didn't laugh once. Bart looked us in the eye. I didn't laugh once. And we all watched it in the day sober. And we were like, yeah, what were we thinking? And we called that the lost episode of Egghead and Shively. And then every other episode after that, I learned a lot. We learned, if you watch it, I made 4 episodes. If you watch each episode, I learned exponentially through all these mistakes I made, how to make TV. And let's write a script. How about that? That's a good idea. Oh,
what a concept.
Wait, a script. You can only ad lib, but you have something to ad lib off of. You have to have all your homework done. You have to be able to walk in if you have something that would work if you didn't ad lib a word. Yeah. And then you can go in and screw around.
Okay, do you want to throw something in there?
This is a great segue to another great question from Christian.
Yeah. Oh, the tough puppet lessons we've learned the hard way.
All of them.
All the lessons.
I mean, fair point. Learning things is never a fun thing, I would say. If you're really learning something, it's a terrible experience in that moment, because you have to, then you're like taking on something new. You realize you're confronted with the fact that you didn't know this before.
When you're crying, you're learning.
I mean, there's some truth to that.
Right.
You're right, though. Yeah.
Oh, that's one of the things I learned hard was you got to have a script, and you have to do your homework. You have to plan it out. You have to draw every frame you think you're going to need, and write it down and plan it. And also for editing too, put all your shots in order, number them, and then and use a slate, even if it's just 2 Post-it notes or it's a Sharpie on a piece of paper, and mark them, and write down what were the good takes and the bad takes when you're in the moment. That's not wasted time, because then when you get at the other end, if you don't do that and you go to your editing, you've got all this footage and you go, I have to watch 4 days of shooting to figure out what it was good and what was bad and cut together. Yeah. The homework is really, really important. And also, if you want to be a good filmmaker, become a good editor first, because then you actually know, if you've cut something together, you know what you need for the next one, because you remember that you learn hard lessons about what I didn't shoot, I didn't come from this way. If I had one shot of him over there, I could have cut to, when the best way to learn is to try and fail, and don't be afraid to fail.
That's great advice.
Don't be afraid to fail. Make it, do it, boom. Because if it sucks, don't show it to anybody. It's harder if you're doing it live, because people are paying and coming. I have my issues with Puppet Slams.
Yeah, but if you do it live, then it vanishes into thin air.
Yeah, it's like a Buddhist art. It's like a sandcastle or a jack-o'-lantern.
That's right.
Oh, if no one filmed it, it never happened. Pictures or it didn't happen.
How much, partially asking for me, but when you're doing your homework, how much do you plan out, like, alternate shots and takes that you want to pick up to see? Like, I feel like there's probably a balance between storyboarding out every single thing and then shooting every single thing in that storyboard, and then editing so it looks just like the storyboard, and shooting a little bit more than you need, so that you potentially can play with it in the edit.
I don't normally plan for that stuff. I plan for the film, what I'm going to need. And then when I'm in those moments, you're on someone. And I'm also someone who likes to shoot kind of exactly what I storyboarded. Like, I don't like to shoot a whole big long play. Like, if it's a 10-page script, let's shoot the first 2 pages. We don't need the whole thing, because I'm going to cut here. I know where I'm going to cut, so I know how big a piece I need, because sometimes people screw up in the middle, and you kind of go, "Don't worry, I'm going to be somewhere on that. That screw up is fine. I got the pieces that I need in that long run." But also sometimes say all of a sudden I do coverage on somebody and they have their one line and just picking up, but like, oh, while we're here, everybody else committed. Just do all your lines and just react to them. So that's the extra I have. I have a few moments of some kind of going, oh, things like or things to cut away to that sometimes that you don't realize you need to kind of help do that. And so you shoot your plan, and then you can you see what kind of time you have. And if you're in a setup, like, well, we're here before we move the camera. Give me a little bit of that. Give me because there are certain things about putting it on camera, and you realize that starts to breathe. Because you can only plan for so much. Right. No one's ever storyboarded a thing and then shot the storyboard and we're completely happy with what they shot.
Right, exactly.
Ever. And then there's another thing that people do that I didn't realize is they do pickup shots. Like, they shoot a whole thing and they cut it together and they go, I'm missing some stuff. Let's go back in for a day and do some pickup shots.
Right.
And that's foreign to me, because I was raised in that we shoot the show in 2 days, and what we shot, and that's it. We're done.
Right.
I did the very first handmade puppetry film of Sammy and Sofa, and we Heather and I learned a lot in that process. And I shot it like I'm used to shooting things. That was it. We did that one shoot, done. And she goes, "Well, can we go back and do some pickup shots?" And I was like,
"A what now?
Can we? I didn't think we had a budget for that. There's no budget
Right.
ever. Like, well,
Right.
yeah, well, you know, it's you and your puppets just go back and do some pickup shots to fix it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What
What a concept.
Love
Because
it.
it just wasn't part of my world. Like, you can go back and pick up
Yeah.
some shots.
That's also where your homework can come in handy, because it can help you recreate like where your lights were and where where the camera was pointing. And if you need to go back and pick something up, then you can make it look the same, which is useful.
It is harder to go back and do pickups on certain things. It is. But yeah, but it sounds like you're going to do some pickup shots with some strawberries.
Yeah, definitely. Oh well, now I have a storyboard, and it really was super helpful.
It's
And I should
everything,
have
isn't
done it
it?
from the beginning. And
Yeah.
oh well, just don't tell.
Don't tell
Little
anybody.
Orchestra Society. Don't tell them.
I don't think they care. I think they care about the final final product. No matter
Yeah.
what you went through, you go back and look at that final thing that you did. That's the important thing. That film.
Well,
that
they'll
your
probably
product
be
was.
they'll be happy, because they are the ones they're handling all the edits. So they're going to get a storyboard and a lot of information and less stuff to sift through. So they're going to be much happier.
You're gonna get some phone calls.
Stuff that I sent.
You're gonna get some emails from that editor.
Of course, but fewer than if I was just trying to do it.
Well, that's the other thing too. Is also in the real world, I wouldn't be if I'm the director. I'm not editing.
Right.
If I'm directing a TV show, I have to make sure that what I'm doing, that the rest of the people after I leave know what my plan was.
Right.
You know, and also you have to extra shoot and on those big jobs, you have to shoot extra things too, because all of a sudden the show might be too long and they've got to cut something out. So they need extra things to do their job. And if you didn't give them that stuff, you don't get hired to come back and direct. You didn't give us anything.
Yeah.
I have two last comments.
Yeah.
One is Noah's trying to help you solve the strawberries problem. And he's suggesting using After Effects and just getting rid of it, for what that's worth.
Okay, thanks.
It's not a
It's
bad idea.
it's not a bad
Sometimes
idea.
it's easier and cheaper just to reshoot it
Right.
than trying to spend hours and hours trying to figure out After Effects and making it look right. Sometimes just turn the camera back on. Let's just do it again.
And then Christian has a good question to maybe wrap up on,
Oh yeah.
which is just what are your top productions that you've been a part of?
Yeah, that you've either seen or been a part of. I want to know about what your top 3 productions you've been a part of were.
Allegra's Window, because it was my first TV show,
I think we have
and it was a
picture of
pretty
that.
unbelievable group of people.
There we go.
Kathy
Look at those
Mullen,
young faces.
Kathy Mullen and Pam Arciero and Marty Robinson and Anthony Asbury and Heather and I was our first TV show ever. And we were there with these powerhouses of puppetry. Kathy Mullen is an amazing teacher, and she was learned at the feet of Frank Oz. And she has amazing, I learned so many things from her. And Marty Robinson's also another person. He's one of those few guys who's a puppeteer and puppet builder, and he built all the puppets, and we really bonded, became really wonderful friends. I made really wonderful friends and learned a lot. Also, because we shot it in Florida in February all the time. So I got to leave New York every February and go to work. And they gave us an apartment, and we shot a TV show for Nickelodeon, and we got to ride Back to the Future for lunch every day. So yeah, I know that was, and that was like, this is TV puppetry. I'm going to love it. It was the best job I ever had. And it was the first one. Every job is paled in comparison.
Yeah.
That was fun. God, what are my other ones? What else have I done? I got to look around the room.
Well, you said Muppets at the Hollywood Bowl was a pretty big one for you.
That was huge. Just
neat.
to be part of that legacy and to play piano for Rolf.
Mhm.
And just things like, I got to do so many just fantastic things on that. What other things have I worked on? Well, it's funny. There's a certain group of people that I work with. I'm going to say Wubbulous World of Dr. Seuss.
Oh yeah.
It was a great show. There were 2 different seasons, and each season was a very different show. My chair is breaking all of a sudden. I'm sinking. Have you seen that? All of a sudden, my chair just gave out. Been eating too much bread during quarantine. What was World of Dr. Seuss? Because every day we came in that show, we shot a different story every day. So every day we were all new characters, and it was an ensemble group. It was John Kennedy and Stephanie Abruzzo and Kathy Mullen and me and Marty Robinson and Anthony, and we all got to play. They would come in and like, here, you're a clam. here you're a spider, here you're a boat captain, you're a pirate, and it was a great group of people that we would laugh and egg each other on and do weird things because that character didn't matter. The character was going away after this episode, and it was a great chance to kind of play around. If that felt like Muppet Show because you were always doing something, it felt like a variety show. And those people cool. I still work with, like Stephanie on Helpsters and Ubi and stuff like that. And those are people who and Leslie Carrara Rudolph, who I met on Zeus. People who make me want to go to work because they make me laugh. They all make me laugh, and we just giggle and cause trouble every day. And they're just it just makes it not work.
Yeah, that's great. I love that answer because that's the same reason that I'm in puppetry too, is because of the people. It's just like that. Those are the things that you really remember. Those are the experiences that you have with the people are really what you remember. So yeah, I think that's great. We're almost out of time. I didn't even ask you about the Mosquito fashion shoot that you worked on. Which came up during last week's conversation with Andrea. I had one question though that she couldn't answer that she said to ask you about, which was the puppets were built at the Creature Shop in LA, right?
Yes.
And then sent off to, and then you guys strung them up when you got them all fully clothed. We had 6 marionettes and 40 dresses that were all made in Milan, hand sewn. I could talk for days about the quality of these dresses and how beautiful they were. It was an amazing experience, but they only wanted to and we had to shoot all 40 dresses. We had a 3-day shoot, and the first 2 days we're shooting all 40 dresses. One from the front. We switched cameras on day 2, so they were all front facing cameras from day 1, and they had to recreate it both days. Right,
and they can only afford 6 puppets. So we had to unstring each puppet. The fashion folks would redress the puppet. We would then sew the marionette strings back up through the costume, restring them up the puppet at 10 feet, and then bring it back over to the set. So there was only 6, and since we were in quarantine times, we could only have our puppet team could only be 7 people. We had to keep our numbers really small.
Right.
So there were 6 puppeteers and 1 wrangler. Andrea was, but 3 of us were like puppeteer wranglers. I didn't get on that bridge until day 3. I was constantly redressing. Andrea was amazing. And we got really good friends with the fashion guys. We were like, we had to untie I was brought in because I was the only guy in the shop who'd done marionettes, and they were I was building other Muppets, and they were about to cut me loose. They went, "This marionette thing coming, can you stay?" Like, sure. And all the puppets were 3D printed, and we had to we put them together with magnets. So all their heads were attached with magnets. Also, because there was only 6 marionette bodies, but they wanted 20 different models, so they had replaceable heads. So they were on with a magnet, and their arms were on with magnets because it was going to be easier to kind of. Most of the dresses we saw were kind of like short sleeves and like that, so we could rip their arms off and trade, and without having to restring their arms. It was like 2 less knots we had to tie, so it made it a quicker transition.
Really nice.
So it was a frantic shoot. It was like and luckily there was no audio, but it was us. And of course they didn't build these dresses to be puppeteerable. They built these dresses to look exactly like their full size counterparts. These are 1/3 scale. So and made out of those original fabrics, which don't move so well. And if you've done marionettes, marionettes are very finicky. And so every dress,
the costume is like part of the puppet for a marionette.
Yeah, basically,
because it defines a lot of how it can move.
And also, it depends on where you put the string through the dress to when they walk. Does the dress look awkward? Does it sit on them right? So we'd have to restring a puppet. They'd come to set, and they'd go, nope, and we just broke it off and unstring it and restring a leg or something like that and put them together. So I had to come up with a control that could handle restringing.
A lot of restringing. When
they did restringing, apparently on Team America, because half the team had done Team America, they apparently did it at the body. They apparently pulled the strings off the body and then they glued it back in. And I want to do the opposite. I want all the strings permanently glued in, and let's just untie them from the control so we can kind of adjust them up at the top. So I ended up using a Rufus Rose paddle with a rocker bar.
Yep, that's cool.
Just make it because.
Do you know if the house that built the costumes, did they have a puppet in their hands to build it to?
So
puppet measurements.
So they had hired one company originally to do it. And this first company gave them a digital model of the body that they were going to build the marionettes out of. And they bailed.
Oh,
So when they came to Henson, they said, we've already started making these dresses and they're going to fit this model. So you have to use this model.
okay.
You can't change, but we needed to do some changes. So we couldn't change it from the elbow up or the knee up. So we can only change the lower leg and the lower arm. And of course, all the heads.
Right.
So the body had to stay the same because they'd already started making dresses fit. And these dresses fit
They fit.
perfectly. Like they came on and they had little tiny zippers and they would go zip and the dress would just go. And you're like, oh, perfect. It fits. Wouldn't have to tape it on or anything. They would like to sit on the doll perfectly. It was amazing. And these dresses are museum pieces. I would go back to the picture. This is the best one that it was, that all the tiny embroidery, the scaled down embroidery, because the original dress had that all hand embroidered flowers and stuff.
Oh,
Look at
yeah.
those flowers. Those are scaled down sequins and scaled down. They're all made out of tulle, hand dress. And then they also scaled down the fabric. They had the fabric rewoven at 1/3 scale so it would match the dresses perfectly.
That's
This dress had
incredible.
7 layers of crinoline. And I even had like boning, little fake boning and underwear and corseting to make the whole thing look exactly like, I mean, things that you never saw on camera,
Yeah,
but it's an exact copy of that dress.
that's really
So we had to
cool.
make sure that these dresses, that's the only thing we could, so we had to make them fit this one body that they already had.
Yeah.
And everything was 3D printed in resin, which is the new thing that the old man has to learn about is, I'm really good at fixing all the problems they had in the 3D print engineering. I'm really good at recarving resin prints now. So these are all
Right.
resin printed. They're not ABS fiber printed.
Right,
It's a higher
right.
quality print. And also they had the weight to be a good marionette.
That's good.
They came out of the printer. I'm like, these are going to work great.
That's awesome.
I couldn't believe it. Yeah. No, there's nothing cooler than a bad print, because when a 3D print goes bad, it's something out of a horror movie. It's like, I should have saved some of them too. Like, this is terrible. Throw it away. It's evil.
Yeah, that sounds like something that would be in a short film of yours.
What are you saying about me?
You're saying you like weird stuff, Tim.
I do like weird stuff.
Well, speaking of which, I'm really happy that you've come to be a part of this weird show.
Anytime.
Thank you so much for being here.
Great to talk to you. I miss your face. Say hi to
miss your
everyone in
face
New
too,
York
man.
for me. I'm glad you're doing well. You look good.
Thank you. You too. Keep at it, man. Until the next time we get to work together, and until the next time we see each other, I hope you do well.
You too. Good to see
Keep
you.
it up, man. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Well, we come to the end of another episode of Puppet Time Online. Thank you all so much for joining me. Thanks again to my guest, Tim Lagasse. You can check us out at, check us out at the Puppet Kitchen.
And also,
you can find, and also Tim Lagasse at his website. Go check out all the crazy things that he's done. We haven't even scratched the surface. This guy is prolific. And he's done all the stuff that he does is really, really cool. I really like Sammy and Sofa too, especially. I was always really impressed with that short film. You can follow us online on Facebook and Twitter, on Instagram, where the show started. We're at the Puppet Kitchen. We also have some sweet merch available on our Square site, and the website is just scrolling past below. So pick up some of that, and rock your Puppet Kitchen pride at home, I guess. And I have. I guess that's it. It's great having you here. Next week, we are going to have Jessica Grindstaff from Phantom Limb is going to be on the show next week. And I'm super excited to talk to her. And I guess that's it. Anything else, Katie?
no way, man.
I rocked it. Anyway, I guess, as always, just remember, you don't have to do everything to do something. We'll see you next time.